very jealous of your camera.
I thought you ordered one.
And we're now live. The yellow light has gone on. Good evening and welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Preposterous Ryan. You're very welcome.
Oh, you ordered one?
Dermot, I think the yellow light has gone on. Good evening and welcome. Dermot, I think you've got the sound on the other. Sorry. A big hello. Hello to Dermot Bowen in Mission Control. Hello. Dermot.
Not quite in control just yet. But...
I know you're doing very well. A big hello to Johnny Keenan in Offaly with fantastic pumpkin.
Kilkenny, John.
Sorry.
Fantastic.
I beg your pardon. I said that this is the second week I've done that. Johnny, there's a beautiful pumpkin behind you.
Yeah. We'll just give it a close-up, John, because it might look like it's that much, but it is. The detail is quite unbelievable, in fairness. Came from a fan. Murphy.
It came from our fan. That's fantastic.
Yeah. One of our many fans, John. One of our many anonymous fans.
Okay.
They're on the sidelines. Can you see that there, lads?
Oh, wow. That is incredible.
Hmm.
Sorry, John. I just...
Yeah. Well,
that is great. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, beautifully done. How is that done, Johnny?
With a steady hand and a scalpel.
That's great.
And obviously a talented eye for art.
That's fantastic, Johnny. Thank you. And big hello to Neil Curran, our producer in Dublin. Hello, Neil.
How's it going?
How are you?
I'm doing okay.
We haven't seen you in a couple of weeks.
I was on the run from the presidential candidates. Well,
actually, just on that, we're going to be joined by a number of people over the next couple of hours. But early polling, unscientific perhaps, suggests that Mr. Peter Casey, may be doing a lot better than people had earlier expected. What do you think about Neil? Did you hear me there, Neil? Can Neil not hear us? Okay, Neil, Johnny.
I can hear you now. I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Neil, Peter Casey is doing very well on early online polling.
Those very reliable online polls.
What are your thoughts?
He is. Well, if we jump first to Boards.ie, they did a straw poll amongst their user base in a casual forum that they have. So he has oh jeez, I had the bloody thing open. He has the majority of their votes, but you'd wonder if it's just for the divilment. He's got 53, nearly 54% of the vote amongst casual boards users, and then Higgins is 36%. But you know, it could be people doing that for the divilment. Okay. Same with the Limerick leader; they also have similar stats on them.
Yeah, but they've got
the article there.
They had 10,000 votes across 13 websites, and they've given him a majority of 51%.
Yeah, that's I'd take it with a pinch of salt, though.
Yeah, well, what do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, John. I did see that post, and that company that owns all those, the only Kilkenny people, Offaly Express, Leinster Express. So I think personally, most media organizations, I still haven't found out where Broadsheet are, but most media organizations are associated with one agenda or another. So by putting out this poll amongst this particular media company, are they basically supporting Peter Casey, or are they just highlighting the fact that people all of a sudden are supporting Peter Casey?
Well, they carried a poll across 13 of their websites, and people voted, and 10,000 people have voted. Over 5,000, or over 51%, voted for Peter Casey. Said that they would vote for Peter Casey.
Over Michael D. Higgins, any other candidates?
Oh yeah, like a majority of,
Yeah, that's interesting. But if you look at it in the last 2 weeks, he shook it up. He was nobody in the presidential election. And people might or might not know that he was a CEO of Coca-Cola, and he has the big the diaspora building there on the Keys, which is a a big operation. Could be possibly the biggest tourist attraction in the next coming years. So he's got an awful lot of money from the government in relation to that. And he called out people who have horses, but the travelling community, he didn't talk about any other people with horses that avoid paying tax. But so yeah, he's got an agenda. He wanted to just shake it up and see where he could get the most publicity, I suppose, because you have to really try hard now, because Michael D seems to be running away with it. So they have to try anything. And he seemed to have tried a Trump tactic, and that's what he did. He blamed one portion of the population, a minority, which people like him usually do, and to kind of ignore the fact that it's the banks and corrupt government that are actually the problem. There's another poll that kind of, quite similar to this, in relation to Ireland is only the 19th most corrupt country in the world, and an awful lot of people were ringing into News Talk, I heard, and saying, well, we're not that corrupt. So maybe, that's the whole Irish mentality. We need to wake up and say we are actually something. We are racist and we are corrupt, and we'll see how racist we are tomorrow when I'm sure he'll get more of the votes than he would have had 2 weeks ago. Well,
Neil, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sorry, I remember reading that, Johnny, and I was surprised as well as that at the survey. But I was wondering, though, maybe it's less about, where we fall on the corruption table, and really more about how high up the food chain the corruption is. It'd be interesting to see that level. When you look at, say, well, I don't want to name stuff specifically, but if you look at, say,
I'll go on name specifically.
The conspiracy ones are the non-conspiracy ones. But if you a lot of the corruption cases are very, very high profile. Yeah, all of them. Well, we could start with the ones that aren't corrupt. It'll be a shorter list. But
if you look at the Disclosure Tribunal.
Well, there you go. I mean, if you take stuff like that, it's very high profile corruption cases, which obviously may hit the press, hit the media. It'd be interesting to see how that compares with other countries as opposed to the level of corruption. I don't know how those stats were measured, but I was very surprised that we ranked where we did.
Who are you voting for tomorrow, Neil?
So you're not going to like my answer. I'm in AOH at the moment. ABH. Anyone but Higgins.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been impressed. I'm a little bit irritated at how it just seems to be this default. That he's going to get a landslide. But he's performed quite poorly, I felt, in the debates. From the ones he didn't turn up to, and he's dodged a lot of questions as well, which is very disappointing.
Yeah.
Which not like it's a rough crowd. The candidates, they're a tough bunch. But I found that very disappointing. He's dodged a lot of questions. I also don't think someone should be president for 14 years, but that's another story. So I could change my mind at the last minute in the ballot box. It won't be Mr. Casey either get my vote, so that's for sure.
Okay, but then okay. Well, I won't press you on it, but you're definitely anybody but MD anybody.
Yeah. But to be fair now, even if he had given a good campaign, I still don't know if I could vote for it on principle of someone shouldn't hold office for 14 years.
Yeah, something has happened over the last few weeks, isn't it? With Higgins, I think. I mean, we were big supporters of him the last time around, and applauded his presidency or approved of. I don't know what. I mean, we found it quite fun, and he was sort of the dogs and everything, and I think he was a good through the austerity years at some points. I know there's the Irish water thing and aspects like that, but I have to say in the last year or so, the expenses, it just feels indulgent, It does feel like.
And he didn't make that statement that he would get into detail about the expenses after he got re-elected. Which is a bit like someone knocking at your door and saying, "Will you let me in? I'll tell you if I'm a criminal after you let me in."
Right.
It was a good one, though. I agree with what John, you were saying there. I supported him 7 years ago. I actually went out and got people to vote for him because I felt like that Ireland needed someone like that who would represent the arts and represent Irish culture and its history. And I suppose out of all the candidates, he knew the most. So in relation to being the first citizen, I thought he'd be great in that. I didn't expect him to stay quiet when he had to sign in the water charges bill, and I didn't expect him to stay quiet when he had to sign in the evictions bill. Like, he is voted for by the people. If he doesn't have an opinion, and he made a big thing. I only looked at one of the debates because I was that disgusted in relation to what way it panned out. I seen democracy being murdered there in the councils a few months ago, as I talked about here before. And I just felt that, it's such a waste of time, this presidency. And when he was talking about that he needed to go to Belfast to give that keynote speech in relation to the Good Friday Agreement and 20 years of peace, and he talked about, how we should all come together. But I haven't seen any evidence of that either in relation to being part of campaigns, for example. I expect that the first citizen would lead campaigns that wouldn't usually get the attention that they deserved. He spoke on behalf of the artists that were already established artists. He didn't talk about the piss poor artists, the ones that will never be played on radio, the white artists that have something to say about austerity, that are writing about it, being given a platform. So he didn't do that. So I don't really know what he's going to do, but unfortunately he's the best of a bad lot. But I'm not going to vote on a matter of principle. I'll vote for yes for the blasphemy law, but I won't vote for any of the presidential candidates.
Can I just greet, while you've been talking, Kevin Higgins, a lawyer from Galway, an advisor to the Tuam Home Survivors Group. Joined us. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Kevin.
How are you? Can you hear me, John?
We can. Your line is a little bit scratchy, but we'll get through that. Big hello to Luke Brennan. Hello, Luke Brennan in Porto.
Hi, John. Good to see you.
Very good to see you after a good few weeks. We haven't seen you for a few weeks.
Yeah, just been busy running around, enjoying the hot weather and all that,
Great. Well, great to see you. And we're going to have a chat in a bit about your brother, in fact. And we're also joined by celebrity accountant Vanessa Foran. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there.
So sorry about that. Google, you crashed.
Yeah, but we've got everything back now. Is that the new camera, or is that the old camera?
No, so it's the one on the
on the built-in
desktop. But yeah, Google, you're not as good as you think you are.
No,
I was the first to log in this evening, by the way, everybody.
Yeah, I know, and then we lost you. But you're very welcome, Vanessa. We're talking about the unscientific online polling.
Oh gosh,
that gives Peter Casey 51% in the leader poll, and Kevin also. We're talking about that as well. Would you be surprised, Kevin? Sorry, just briefly. Would you be surprised at Peter Casey's?
Well, I'm not at all surprised at these online polls. I may take a cruder view of it in that, whereas some people may tap on their keyboard, I think some of them would suffer severe damage to their knuckles in making their way to the polling booths. So I wouldn't read too much into it.
Okay. Vanessa, you said 5% for Peter Casey. I think considerably more, actually.
I think Peter Casey is going to be mortified on Saturday morning, thinking he's, in excess of 10%. I think we're in for a shock on Saturday morning, but I don't think it's Peter Casey.
Okay.
I think he'll do well. He'll do the best of the dragons.
Right.
But
you don't think Higgins is going to do it, Vanessa?
No, I think President Higgins is going to do it, but I think he's going to be run a lot closer than he thinks.
Luke, are you watching this from afar?
Yeah, well, paying a small bit of attention to it. I think Higgins is in the clear, and it's just a sort of an entertaining fiasco following them.
Okay. I think the vote will be quite substantial for Peter Casey, more than we expect, and I think a lot of it will be a protest vote. I think against, the media political bubble that is, way they've tackled this presidential campaign. Would you agree? Anyone or disagree, Kevin?
it's been pretty unedifying, and I think you're right. There will be an element of protest vote, and I think possibly even with a protest vote, we may see quite a poor turnout. We could see it below 50%.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Is there a thing there that if only a certain percent, I don't think there is, but maybe there should, if there is less than half the electorate, it should be null and void, no? Start again.
Yeah.
It was something we can vote for.
It's a valid poll. It's a valid poll plus one. 50% of a valid poll plus one.
Can I just make one point there that really kind of turned my stomach in relation to this the other day? Like, everyone knows there's loads of volunteer groups that go out every evening and give coffee and socks. Socks are a big thing for homeless people on the streets, because if their feet gets cold, they need a good pair of socks. So when they're asking, do you want a hot drink and a pair of socks? So the hot drink is a big thing. So people come outside the central bank, whatever it's called now, and other places to give out hot drinks. So the other night, the Minister for Finance, what's his face? Anyway, Murphy was there, Minister for Housing, Leo Varadkar was there, handing out tea.
Oh,
with Labour billboards behind them. Yeah. I just thought that just says it all, really, in relation to where their heads are at. Sociopaths, psychopaths, I don't know what you call them, but they are, that image alone, I think, is enough to say how removed they are. And they're getting behind Michael D, the socialist, the champagne socialist. This is all part of the neoliberal government. It doesn't matter whether you're Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil or Labour, they're all about themselves. And that was basically saying what they thought of the homeless crisis.
Yeah, I have to say that's come down very badly on them. Neil, I don't know if, or Dermot, perhaps, if you can find that photograph from that photo op.
The Grafton Street, yeah.
Yeah, on Grafton Street.
Was it a pretty lively thread, wasn't it, John, today or yesterday?
Yeah, but also on Twitter, the Dublin rental investigator tweeted something saying that this was a perverse photo opportunity, and the sight of them with the tea cozy, the Michael D. Higgins tea cozy, pouring tea, and I guess it doesn't look great in terms of optics, but I suppose their heart was in the right place. I mean, the
problem is the whole thing, John, is they said they were backing him from the start, so nobody's surprised, so nobody's put off by that. And I posted this on the thread. Have they not got jobs to do? Like, you had senior ministers there.
Yeah.
And today, Leo and Simon Harris were off. Was it Simon Harris off out in Tyrrellstown? I know it's Leo's constituency, checking these buildings that might be structurally dysfunctional or whatever. Like, I just thought he'd have far busier things to be doing. Could he not send, a constituency aide to visit a school in his constituency to check out what was going wrong? I mean, he's also Minister for Defence. Is that not a busy job?
Can I ask just?
Do they not do 40-hour weeks like the rest of us, or 70 hours a week?
Vanessa, can I just ask anecdotally, yourself and the rest of the panel, including Dermot, people you've spoken to in the last few weeks about the presidency, has anybody surprised you and said that they would vote for Peter Casey? Or
I don't know anyone that's voting for Peter Casey, but I was down in Cork today, and my dad he's Leo Foran says he's voting for Leah.
Right.
Now that could be the Munster thing as well. So
you think that's going to be the surprise, isn't it? Don't you?
I do.
Okay.
I think she's going to run them very close, and I think Joan Freeman is going to do very well.
Do you not think Peter Casey will come second? No, you think Leo will come second?
Yeah, I do.
Sorry, Neil, could you answer that anecdotally? Any of your friends or anybody suggesting it?
No, I mean, it's kind of the running joke amongst people, similar to the sabotage vote as such, but no one I know is voting for him in a serious way that I know about anyway.
There's no real enthusiasm for Higgins. That's what you're saying, Neil, among your friends.
No, there is, but it's that default thing. I think Kevin kind of hit the nail on the head. I think the turnout is probably going to be poor. Higgins is expected to have a landslide, so maybe what could happen is the Higgins voters don't come out en masse to vote for him, and that might narrow that divide. But you know, I think it's all. It doesn't really matter who comes second anyway. But I can't see the margins being that small that it would make you go, Jesus, if there was another, if we were doing this again in a year, it could be different, you know.
Kevin, any Peter Casey fellow travellers among your friends to?
I've had an interesting discussion or two. I'm not going to name names, but I don't think Mr. Casey will register that strongly. I think he will garner more votes than anybody would be comfortable, which is going to be anywhere above 10. I think Vanessa is correct. I think the polls do not accurately reflect what's happening. I think that Leah Nerida will do somewhat better, considerably better than the polls currently suggest. And I think her participation is probably significant. I think it will begin to change the political culture somewhat. And for that reason alone, I think it was a very good idea that she ran, even if she's relatively unknown. I do expect President Higgins to be re-elected, but I do not for a moment think this is going to be a huge margin of victory at all, John. I really do think correct. I think generally it will be the case. It will be a lot tighter.
Johnny, anybody else?
I take that point as well, what Vanessa said, and Kevin, that the Shinners is a growing party the whole time, so they will definitely go out and vote for their woman. And anyone who might be on the fence would say, yeah, well, she's a candidate there that's got something to say. She was quite a good MEP, and she is a good. Her father was a great Irish composer. You know, so
I think he was from Scotland. He was not.
Okay, well, Michelle kind of says a lot in relation to his legacy. No, he's Irish as far as I'm concerned, in that. He's as Irish as a Saudi who has a passport.
Michael McLeamore.
The whole thing there in relation to how that's going to transpire tomorrow could be very interesting, because an awful lot of people are disillusioned with the election as opposed to 7 years ago. Michael D was a breath of fresh air, and the notion of Michael D coming in with seven more years with he looks a bit shook as well, man. I wouldn't like him to be taking on a role that he might bow out of in 2 or 3 or 4 years time. So another woman from a different political party is probably the right thing that Ireland needs right now, and she has form. She was a good MEP in Europe. The rest of them are just chancers, really. In fairness, no disrespect to Joan Freeman, but the other three wasters, you know, that I don't even know. You know, they've kind of proved it in themselves that they've absolutely nothing to offer. I just want to pick up on one point. As I said, I looked at the one Thursday or last Tuesday. Sorry, John, quickly. Gavin Duffy, he said what he was going to do if he did become president. And the 18 to 25-year-olds are an age group that I'm looking at regularly and seeing how disillusioned and despondent they are. And there's not many of them around. They're always getting on planes to get the fuck out of here. But the ones that are left are really kind of alienated. And he said that he would get the young people to do community work and also maybe go into Europe and do their international duty, words to that effect. So before, when Gavin Duffy was growing up, and not too long ago, people used to do jobs and get paid for them. Now he wants them to add something to their CV, and this is more tourist new jobs, bridge. You know, it's like it really defies logic that the way Gavin Duffy and these kind of guys think, that people are there to work for nothing and for the betterment of the country.
Thanks, Johnny.
Very odd kind of thinking, the way he thinks.
Very strange, Johnny. Could you just move a little bit because you're blocking our fans?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Johnny, did you do those actually? I missed your introduction, so sorry.
Fan stopped me on the street and said, "I think he could do with some representation there."
And we have
they're fantastic.
the dog that carving around the back of it. Dermot, can I just ask you, Dermot?
Yep.
Among your peer group,
My brethren.
what are the young people saying? What are they saying about Peter Casey? I mean, are any of your friends going to vote? Number one, and number two, would they consider voting for Casey or even Leota or whatever?
There seems to be a lot of support for Higgins, a bit of support for Casey, kind of taking the piss in the chat pit as well. It'd be nice to support Casey for the laugh type of.
Yeah.
Mostly people are just ambivalent or disgusted with it. Like, it is a bit of a farce, I think. Like the people that were chosen to run. And also, I think, why weren't they out at public presence longer than the last 2 months or so? Like, with Sean Gallagher, why wasn't he out campaigning for a lot? If they're going to go for a presidential run, you think they'd prepare more of a presence.
Sean Gallagher was cryogenically frozen in 2011.
He got new teeth.
He's been washing his hair.
He got new teeth, that's for sure.
So no Casey fans among your friends, no?
No.
Yeah, Dermot, in your own time, we're not like we're live.
But Dermot is Dublin based as well.
Yeah.
You could throw it out to the chat pit because it's all strangers in there. Is anyone in the chat pit that is genuinely going to vote for Casey?
There was a question you wanted to ask from the chat pit.
Sorry, John?
You chatted, you chatted there, you said something from the chat pit, but the message went.
Yeah, John, they're asking you to bring the mic closer to your mouth.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can I just add something about, this is similar to the referendum.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Dermot, by the way. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for your contribution. Sorry, Vanessa, go on.
But this is similar to the referendum type count. It's, it's all going to collate in Dublin. And there's no... Casey isn't going to get much of a vote in Dublin. He may get a vote. I just logged into the the temperament of rural Ireland, which is premierview.com. Okay. And they have Peter Casey miles ahead, but that's just blackguarding,
Well,
it's a blackguard. Like, what's the blackguard? Like, racism is fairly serious. So, I don't know why they're making a blackguarding issue of it. That's more Irishness again. Oh, we'll have a laugh, and that's why nothing's ever taken fucking seriously.
Johnny, you don't know. This is a behind closed doors website, so it's deliberately winding fellas up. That is, ultimately, I don't think you have to have a very strong vote in Dublin to be even getting your 12.5% of the quota, and I don't think Peter Casey has that. I think Sinn Féin will get the vote out in Dublin for Leah, and I think she has a very strong support in the Munster vote.
Okay.
And she may pull in some more Gaeltacht votes because she is a native speaker. I think she did quite well in the debates. I think she came across as very presidential in the debates, and I thought John Freeman did well in the debates. Peter Casey, on the other hand, I just find him very scatty. He starts off with one to answer one way, and he ends up kind of going off. I think ultimately, I don't know whether did I say this to you last week, lads? I actually think there's a conspiracy behind Duffy and Gallagher. I think they were egged on to go in by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael to eat into the Sinn Féin vote. And I think Casey just hopped on board then because he wasn't letting the other two off.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
I think he's an egotist more than he's a racist.
Well, don't underestimate the messer vote, just to mess things up, the vote, the crack vote, having the crack.
That poll itself was very interesting in relation to the demographic of the people, because they're all regional papers. So it does kind of tell you in relation to there is a serious racism in this country against travellers. There's a serious racism in this country against black people. And other people that aren't from Ireland. That's there's racism all over the world, but so we're no different than anywhere else. And the racism vote will be seen tomorrow, and hopefully it won't be too much, but it will be seen.
What's that, Kevin?
Sorry, Kevin.
Are we talking about the redneck vote?
Redneck.
Well, Kevin, I want to come to you about the Tuam exhumation and Minister Zapone's statement this week. But first, because Neil is going on, Neil has a very, very early start, and he's got to recommend. He's just going to recommend. We're going to lighten it up just for a little bit. He's going to recommend 3 movies for this weekend. Is that okay, Kevin?
Of course, my dear fellow, anytime. Yeah.
Neil, around about this time, I'd love to hear your movie choices for the weekend. We've lost your voice. Can't hear you, Neil.
Stars Born, isn't it, Neil?
We're not going to talk about A Star is Born.
Why not?
I had a conversation with a grown man there recently who didn't realize I followed him on Twitter, and I work with this lad, and he said how he was bawling his eyes out watching A Star is Born, and I said, we'll have a chat about this in the office tomorrow, and he came forth and said, yeah, he was bawling his eyes out. But anyway, it's
hang on, before you go further, is Bradley Cooper a good replacement for Chris Christopherson?
There's only one Chris Christopherson, really, isn't there?
But it took huge money, top with 2 weekends in a row.
Very good.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a solid film that I'll probably never watch for the rest of my life.
Okay, Neil. So what shall we watch this weekend?
So we've a couple of things out this weekend, and there's a film I want to talk about from last week as well because I wasn't around. We've an Irish film out, John. I'm sure you've seen it 3 times over at this stage because you're always first in line for the Irish one. So it's an Irish documentary called Katie, which is about our beloved Katie Taylor. Yeah. I'm going to be honest with you, lads. I don't know nothing about it because I'm not a boxing fan, Katie Taylor fan.
Up on the site, we have a Broadsheet Trailer Park. Katie is up there. There's some details about it anyway. Sorry, Neil, go on.
Yeah, I mean, well, from what we know, Katie, she's a very private person, so it'd be interesting to see how deep it goes into her life. But anyway, that's there for the boxing fans.
Well, I think Peter, it does follow that trajectory and the recent stuff with Peter and all that, and them splitting out the partnership, the coaching thing. Anyway,
yeah. Okay. So another one of the releases this week is Bohemian Rhapsody. This has been we've been teased with this for some time. So Bryan Singer, controversial director Bryan Singer, who made The Usual Suspects and X-Men, has directed it, and Rami Malek plays Freddie Mercury. So the reviews are pretty good. And his performance is excellent. It's a little bit more of a watered down version of Freddie Mercury. I mean, they mention his kinkier side, his more lubrious side, or whatever you want to call it, but it doesn't really go into much detail there. So it is kind of has that kind of a warm feel to it, but it is getting good reviews, and as I say, Malek's performance is excellent. Other film out this week, which I don't know a lot about, to be fair, is The Hate You Give, which is directed by George Tillman Jr. And I don't know much about it, so I'm not even going to pretend that I do. But I think Bohemian Rhapsody is the film of the week. But I do want to mention, for the season that we're in, I do want to mention it's Halloween. And horror movies. Horror movies are this taboo topic. People either love them or they hate them. And when you ask them why do you not like them, because they don't like to be scared. And then people say, oh, it's hard to get a good scare. But of course, we had the big release of the Halloween sequel. The Halloween 2 has come out with Jamie Lee Curtis has come back, but it's not really Halloween 2 because we've had 2 previous Halloween 2s, and Jamie Lee Curtis did come back after the original. But anyway, they've given a stab, and all of the Halloween sequels have been atrocious over the years. Atrocious. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis came back for Halloween H2O, and Janet Leigh was in that as well. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. But this is a pretty okay. It's a pretty okay movie. I mean, Michael Myers is back. And it's quite and what's his face, the original director, oh my god, I can't remember. Carpenter, John Carpenter is involved, obviously. But yeah, the depiction of Mike Myers has totally gone away from where the sequels were going. And I think if people are fans of the original, which is quite dated now as a movie, it was the original slasher film. there's a bit of a surprising twist in it, and there's some clever ideas that are at play in it. I don't want to give it away. So it's a pretty solid film for a slasher horror film. It's definitely the best of these remakes, reboots, sequels that we've seen.
What's the age group that you couldn't bring kids to that? No.
A man going around chopping people up with a machete is probably not going to appeal to the younger generations.
Oh, right.
But, I'm not sure what the age. Probably 16s. I'm not sure. But I was going to ask you guys.
Record as well.
It's what? Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I sent you the link, didn't I?
Broke the record.
Yeah, for a franchise opening weekend, the highest ever.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of anticipation for it because the trailers gave a good tease, and of course Jamie Lee Curtis coming back for it as well. Of course, here's an interesting random fact about the film. So you know the Michael Myers mask that he wears. Do you know who that mask is actually of? This is true now. It's not bullshit.
Which the long
the mask he wears on his face. Now I don't know if it's the same. I imagine it is, but the mask is actually
some boogeyman anyway.
Peter.
No, it's not. It's William Shatner. It's a William Shatner face mask as the mask that Michael Myers has worn over.
That's mean.
Okay.
You were
going to ask us all the questions.
I was going to ask you, because we're coming up to Halloween and our next show is after Halloween, what's the panel's favorite scary movie?
Okay.
It's actually Halloween.
Why is it Halloween, Vanessa?
I was at a party when it first launched. I think maybe a year after it launched, was on video. Really old friends. I mean, this is over 30 years ago.
Okay.
And I remember, do you know the part? There's no spoiler. Everyone has seen the original Halloween. But you know when Jamie Lee's in her nurse's uniform and she's walking down the corridor, and suddenly she's looking down and her shoes fall off. Your man has the knife in her back and he's after lifting her up.
God. No.
Do you remember that part?
No, I didn't see that. But so Halloween is yours.
I had to leave the room, and all the lads were slagging me. And
Johnny, have you a favorite horror movie?
I don't actually. I try to avoid them, John. I see modern life horrific enough, so I don't need to put myself through it. I do actually want to talk about quickly a film that I did see today, which was kind of horrific.
Okay, 1 second. No, Johnny, you're going to hijack.
Okay, grand. No, I've nothing to add to that conversation. Sorry.
We'll talk about Rosie in later.
I'm not saying about Rosie, but I just don't. I don't have any horror.
Marcel tried to hijack Neil Slot a few weeks ago, and that
no.
We haven't seen him since. No? Where is he now?
We negotiated demarcation, Johnny.
Neil.
Brought in Brendan.
Dermot, sorry, your favorite horror movie?
I was just wondering how Neil rated the Donald Sutherland movie, Don't Look Now.
Oh, it's a classic. That's a classic.
Yep.
Don't Look Now. I'll have to write that down.
Dermot, what's yours before?
As a kid, Don't Go to Sleep.
The which?
Terrified me. Don't Go to Sleep.
Don't Go to Sleep.
Yeah. And the third Halloween, where they have the masks that turn your head into snakes or something, that was great.
Neil, do you remember that one?
The third Halloween, I don't remember.
You know the song, 2 more days for Halloween.
I'm disappointed, Dermot, that you picked one of the worst sequels to be one of your favorites.
The third Halloween. Kevin, sorry, Neil, go on, please.
No, and that's it. It was a great choice by Kevin. I commend Kevin for his choice of Don't Look Now. It's a classic horror film with a rather unnecessary sex scene with Donald Sutherland, and we see
and who
more
else?
of Donald Sutherland that we want to.
The Shining also, Neil, would that be?
Shining, Scott. It was a film that Stephen King hated. The original Shining, he was not a fan of that at all.
No.
I think this is another attempt to reboot it, make it into a TV series, and I think King does endorse it. So, Julie Christie, that was who it was in Don't Look Now.
Oh.
Yeah.
John, what's yours?
Well, I mentioned The Shining there just because I was trying to impress Neil. I think. I don't know. I don't like them, so I've avoided them. I've never saw Halloween. I stopped watching Carrie halfway through. I thought Omen as a kid was just really, really terrifying.
Yeah.
Damien and whatnot.
It was really.
So.
It's more dramatic, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was so well done. Like it was just. I mean, you don't see a lot of horror films like that that can maintain the sense of dread.
Do you know the Dracula? Gary Oldman's Dracula.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, it's just very hard to watch that. You know the way he moves and the hair. It's just...
Yeah, the hairstyle is terrifying. What I think about the Dracula, we were talking about Dracula on Twitter last night, and George Hamilton in Love at First Bite. The first tanned Dracula.
Young Frankenstein.
Well, sorry. Anyway, look, Neil. So we've the three movies are Katie,
the Bohemian Rhapsody, and The Way You Hate. And we'll throw it out there for Bohemian Rhapsody this week.
Okay. So that's
any news? And sorry, John, do you mind if I ask Neil? Is there any news on what's your man Riverdance's movie?
No, it's been very quiet. Been very quiet.
Well, we're plugging it that much. I hope we get an invite to it now.
We should get an invite to his house at this point.
Which house? Somewhere nice now. Don't want to go back down to Cork.
I have a correspondence with the producer of that. I did. It wasn't the warmest of correspondence, but I mean, I do have a contact there. So.
Yeah, I mean, the production page hasn't been updated for a number of months, so it could be in post-production limbo.
Well,
maybe they want my bikini.
Well, I think the award season they like in January. So it's
it'll need to drop now for the awards.
In time for the Oscars. But anyway, there isn't a dance category, sadly, but there should be. Kevin, I wanted to talk to you in your capacity as the legal advisor to the Tuam Home Survivors Group. Minister Sabone made her decision this week regarding the exhumation, and is it Dr. Jeffrey Shannon's report?
Yeah, Jeff Shannon produced a report which was, I don't think it was necessary. I don't think Jeff told, he told us a great deal in a very academic and very elegantly written way, in the way that Jeff does. One, he is a specialist in child law. He is a very serious academic. I know him quite well. I would have great regard for him, both his in a professional status and personally. But we didn't need this report. And the idea that I have been yelling to anybody who would listen from the very beginning, from the first day that Zapone said the government would make a decision on the future of the Tuam site in advance of the report of the Commission of Investigation into Mother and Baby Homes. And I can say this with complete honesty, because in some cases there are several hundred witnesses to it, where my nose, you couldn't have got a blade of grass between my nose and Zapone's in public, where I was practically yelling into her face, Minister, you are being dishonest. You do not have the power, or government does not have the power to make a decision on the Tuam site. And as it happens, the evening before, last Monday evening, just hours before this so-called decision was made, one of Peter Mulryan's daughters, Trina, met Varadkar face-to-face with Anna Corrigan and with Catherine Corliss. And she put to him, and I can be, let me just put it to you, I can be 1000% certain of every word she spoke to the Taoiseach, and I can be 1000% as to each word he spoke back to her. And ultimately, after a lot of gibbering and vacillation, there was an admission that it would require legislation. Now, since the only way legally that the Tuam mass grave can be exhumed and various investigation carried out is on foot under the jurisdiction of the relevant coroner. What do you need legislation for? You need legislation only to bypass the existing law. And the existing law with respect to coroners and inquest is the only legal mechanism which can place on the public record the causes of death of each of those children. So what we're looking at here is a little bit like people going into Belsen in 1945 and saying, this is terrible, but we'll move these bones to one side. We'll rebury them with dignity. Perhaps we may be able to identify a few of them, but we don't actually need to know how they died. This is what they are doing. And it is no coincidence that on the same day that they make this announcement that they're going to change the law, that the Bon Secours sisters divvy up 2.5 million towards the cost. Now, I make that worth about €3,100 per dead child, not counting the women who are buried there. This is blood money. This is the government subverting the law. This is the government subverting human rights. This is as big a scandal as the Tuam pit in itself. And to use Martin Callanan's one-liner, this is disgusting.
Kevin, a little bit like the Charlton report, where Maurice McCabe said he was extremely happy, and yet when you look through the report, you know, I mean, I suppose it's just low expectations that he would have, and similarly, Catherine Corless this week said she was extremely happy with the decision that had been made, and I had the similar feeling that okay, perhaps she has low expectations.
I think that would be a little unfair on Catherine. I really do. Catherine has been living with this daily, and I know this for an absolute fact. I have sat in that woman's kitchen on many an occasion, and whereas I think now she is certain of her own place in this particular piece of social history, she did need convincing from time to time just what an important and pivotal figure she has been and remains. The thing with Catherine Corless is she takes people at face value and she believes them. And when they tell her that they mean well and they're going to do the right thing, Catherine Corless will believe them. It's almost 4 years since we sat in the public gallery above the Dáil chamber. And people for whom I have spent many, many hours, people who come from other mother and baby homes, they clapped excitedly when they heard the announcement of a commission of investigation. And I tried to tell them, this is not going to deliver you any kind of justice or vindication. And as I said, I think to you last week, you only have to read Peter Charlton's report to see how he dismisses the whole protocols and mechanism of commission investigation. He regards it as practically worthless, and he said so.
Yeah, he did.
But the same thing has happened. Catherine, of course it is an improvement that the bodies of these children should be removed from a septic tank. But it's not about shifting bones from one place to another, no matter how delicately, sensitively, or how dramatically it's done. It is about establishing how 800 children died in circumstances that were clearly appalling. It is about, the only thing an inquest can do and is entitled to do is to find out the truth. And they want to bypass that. Clearly, they have no interest in the truth. If you read the so-called, sorry, John, if you read the so-called expert technical group, which is a mirage anyway, you will find that the author of that, Niamh McCullough, says that the outcome of the finding of those stones may lead to an uncomfortable relationship between the church and state.
Yes.
I mean, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And as you say, the timing of the Bon Secours payment to coincide with the announcement seemed I felt the hand of Terry Prone there once again.
Their ads. Have you heard their ads on the wireless for their clinics?
Well, no, I haven't. But Kevin, just on with Catherine,
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was simply just saying that, was she happy because her expectations had been so low? I wasn't trying to insult her in any way.
No, I don't believe for a moment you were trying to do that. I think.
But did she feel that
I can't speak for Catherine. I can speak for myself. I know what she has experienced in the past 6.5 years. I know the extent to which the Corliss family, herself and Aidan, particularly in the home there, have been consumed by this.
Yes.
On an absolutely daily basis. You can find Catherine's telephone number by simply Googling her. She answers every telephone call. She answers every email. She has gone to the National Library. She has rooted out stuff from the National Archives. She has, after careful research, she has picked up the phone and rung people who possibly until recently didn't know her name and said, excuse me, I think you might have a sibling in this pit. But I think what you felt when the announcement was, the headline was that the children would be removed from the situation. I think what she felt, like many people, was an overwhelming sense of relief.
Yeah, of course.
And that's going to impact on how she reacts.
Of course. Did she feel this death certificates were enough, though? I mean, is that the?
Well, the death certificates are a fiction. I'm no epidemiologist, but I mean, even the somewhat more than cursory study I've done of them shows that they're largely meaningless. I mean, 25% of these children, in excess of 25%, are supposed to have died from something as nebulous as debility.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah,
utterly absurd.
Well, and Kevin, where will the Tuam Home Survivors Group take this? Because what I meant this week, Kevin, was that I felt in a little awkward situation talking to the other groups because they seemed quite pleased with it.
Yeah,
I could clearly see
a sense of relief. I mean, unquestionably. Now, I know that Anna Corrigan welcomed it very warmly.
Yes.
But you'll find that in the past 24 hours, Anna is now questioning the adequacy of this.
Okay.
Okay.
I
anger to get the better of me. I'm sorry, but it's.
No. Catherine Corliss is on the late, so maybe we'll get a tomorrow night. So maybe we'll get a better, more rounded view of where she's coming from. But as you say, the relief just that something was being done.
Yes.
And it wasn't basically the cover-up that was one of the options.
Well, it is a cover-up, John.
Well, no, I meant the actual physical.
Oh yes, yeah.
I
mean, I've known that for absolute certainty for the past number of months. I've known exactly what they were going to do, and I may have repeated that. I said they will move the bones from one place to another and give them a dignified burial, or what they call a dignified burial. And I tell you what, if you look at the few photographs of Varadkar on his flying visit to the site, you only have to look at his face, and pragmatically what he is saying is, this can't continue. We can't leave these bodies here. I mean, you only have to look at his face to know that it could no longer be dragged out.
No.
But no, they don't want the truth, John. They want, and it's a deal. This is a deal brokered with Zapone, the Bon Secours. This is an utterly corrupt, disgusting deal.
Well, Kevin, we'll come back to this in a second. We're joined actually from Cork by Gemma O'Doherty, former presidential hopeful, and Gemma's at a Changemakers meeting in Cork. And Gemma, can you hear us?
Yes, John. Sorry about our late arrival. I'm here with Alo Mohan.
Hello.
Hi. Alo's been exposing a lot of corruption within agriculture and various fraud, etc., that's going on that Revenue is aware of, etc. So we've had a really great night here in Cork. We had a great turnout, and my goodness, the stories just keep coming about corruption in this country. But a lot of people are very emboldened after the meeting here this evening, and we would see some serious candidates here who are going to put themselves forward, hopefully, for the local elections in May.
Okay.
Dermot is here. He's just sitting down here now.
Hi, John. How are you?
Hello, Dermot. How are you? How are you doing?
Very good. Long day.
Long
I
day.
think we've had a huge presentation here this evening. It was fabulous.
Yeah, it looked very good earlier on. I saw some photographs from it.
Yeah, good. It was powerful talks, a very good mix from different aspects of life in the agricultural sector with Elmo.
Hello.
And with Gemma and Seamus. It gave a very good, like an actually overwhelming presentation. Even as someone who's been trying to fight, justice questions for a long time, you still get surprised with the extent that gets exposed to you. So, I mean, I can tell you, even at the meeting here tonight, 3 or 4 people have come up to us saying that they'd like to be organised and even join a contest of elections next year. So,
wow.
Announced a programme there last week on it. We're building a thing called Housing Rights and Reform Alliance, based on prioritising the housing crisis in all its aspects, the whole issue of reform of government to make it do what it should do and represent people and all of their corruption and waste of public money and everything else. And it's being taken up. So we're rapidly now going to prepare this movement and have people join it. So we're going to threaten dumping out the political parties out of City Hall and County Hall in Cork. And we have some contacts from other counties as well. And we hope this will spread. People should have confidence to stand up for themselves. So that's an impression I have from the meeting tonight.
Fantastic.
He stood up especially, said she was afraid that she was on her own, and she was so happy that anybody would stand up and tell the truth, and fearless, because you probably saw the whole hail of objections. People didn't want our meeting to go ahead, and it was an intense thing. And that's very funny when someone so intensely doesn't want you to speak.
Yeah.
Say, I have to hear what these people have to say. That's what we did. So I'm kind of at a high, to be honest, now after tonight. So
it's the Streisand effect. So can I just ask you, just before we start, get into this, Gemma, I don't know if you've seen any of the online polls regarding Peter Casey's candidacy. He is polling extremely well in.
Is he?
Apparently, in a lot of the online polls, including the Limerick Leader, which did 13 websites, 10,000 people voting, had him down at 51%. It's obviously a protest vote.
I suppose he is the anti-establishment vote at this stage, which is going to, that's going to poll. He will poll well, I'm sure. He
would be, but the fact, like, the fact that you weren't even allowed stand, and there's a chance that he could not top the poll, but do very well tomorrow. I mean, how does that make you feel?
How does that make me feel?
Well, the fact that Peter Casey has a strong chance tomorrow, you weren't even nominated. I'm just sort of saying that. Does that?
Well, I mean, I'd be delighted for anyone to become president who will deal with corruption. That's all I want. If Peter Casey is going to, deal with all of the issues, the suffering that our citizens are going through in relation to housing, health, policing, the environment. If Peter is going to take all those issues on, I'd be delighted. That's all I ever wanted, and that's the only reason I ran, because the suffering has become too enormous at this stage. And I'm here with Yvonne Hollage, whose daughter Rebecca was damaged by the HPV vaccine, and she gave a tremendous speech tonight about the devastation that this vaccine has caused to her family and to her daughter, and the manner in which they have been treated by the HSE is appalling. But Yvonne is going to have a word with you now, if that's okay.
Hello, Yvonne.
Hello. Hi, good evening.
Sorry, it's so ramshackle with the camera and everything like that, but I gather it was a very good meeting tonight, this evening.
It was a really good meeting. It's the first time in a long time that here in Ireland we've had the opportunity to speak out, not for ourselves, but for our girls. our girls have had their voice taken away from them. You know, and in the early days when we had raised the red flag, the media had given us, you know, some interviews and had talked about the possibility of side effects. And all of a sudden, the shutters came down, which meant that our girls never had a chance to ask, actually, what happened to me? And is there any way of recovering my health? So many of these girls are left day after day with their health deteriorating, with no chance of help coming and no hope of help coming.
And you had a forum.
It's a lot of futures lost.
And you've had no forum before now to be able to express
I can't
this.
quite hear that. Can you hear?
Sorry. I'm just saying that tonight you had a forum to express these.
Forum to expose it.
Sorry, say
You
it
had a
again.
forum to expose it.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about a number of issues this evening, and one of them, of course, is the lack of treatment for the girls here in Ireland and having to leave the country. We ourselves had to reach out to the community to help us to fundraise in order to get Rebecca treatment. But the really difficult thing about that is all the girls that you leave behind when you get on that plane to take your child away, knowing that they're not going to receive the same treatment. And it's not rocket science. The treatment that my daughter's receiving at the minute isn't rocket science. It could easily be set up in centres here in Ireland, or doctors could administer the same treatments, and it wouldn't cost the earth either.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Perhaps next week. Perhaps next week we can have you on and we can discuss this a little bit, in a little bit more sort of less clumsy setting, less ramshackle setting. If that's okay. Sorry, Gemma.
You might just like to have a quick word, John, with Allo Mohan as well, and he'll just tell you briefly about what he's been speaking about this evening.
Of course. Hello, Allo.
Hello, John. How are you?
You're from Cavan, isn't that right? You're
Yeah, I'm from Cavan, and as I said, a word of call to the crowd here tonight, and I was trying to explain to them how our world was kind of overturned for refusal to be involved in fraudulent activity. What I didn't understand is the levels and the amount of people that were involved in it, to the point where the prosecution division, after being sent by the Dublin Council VAT Interpretation Unit, and they said it was a fact that we had evidence of fraudulent activity, and the prosecution division refused evidence on the grounds that it may incriminate their senior colleague. So you can imagine how shocked people were here today to hear that type of activity, and for revenue officials that have been kind of pushed in a way by the Department of Finance, so that our taxpayers' money is being utilised by people that are not entitled to it. So that was an awful shock to an awful lot of people here today. It was an invigorating crowd. I have to say, it's the most enjoyable talk I've had in Cork. They really, really do know how to engage, and they know how to encourage people. And you can see that they are not afraid to get up and explain to people we want to see change. And speakers here have been just brilliant.
And would you stand next May in Cavan?
Yeah, I probably will. I have to now at this stage, because I've met that many politicians. I had to take this issue over to the European Commission. At the moment, we had DG taxation that had to force the Minister for Finance to go over to the European Parliament to admit that this is wrong and they change the Finance Act, which they didn't have to, because this is in relation to fraud and there's no need to change any Finance Act for that. But also at the moment, we are now engaging with 5 DGs within the European Commission: DG Competition, DG Taxation, DG Insurance, DG Standards and Grow, and DG Environment, all because this state here refuses, and our regulatory bodies refuse, to actually engage with people or present evidence. The amount of different bodies that we have went to that have refused evidence, it's absolutely scary. It means that we're giving wages to regulatory bodies or fake regulatory bodies, and that they won't do their job. We even had a situation with the central bank, where the central bank turned around and admitted that this was fraud and corruption in relation to the insurance. And then they turned around and forgot to tell the Gardaí, which they said they were going to do, forgot to tell the competition authority, who waited and even contacted them, emailed them, phoned them, and they still didn't do it. To the point where they were afraid, when we said under the Anti-Corruption Act of 2010, if you don't do this, that you will be liable yourselves. And then they start writing back to us as a desk.
That tends to concentrate the mind when you talk about their money.
Yeah, and what do you call it, to be actually told by them that we have this desk that's writing to us all the time, this piece of furniture now, and it wrote back to us last week, and it was nice of it, that before this, during the summer, it wrote to us asking us for evidence, and then the desk wrote to us there last week telling us that they had finished their investigation, and if I wanted to write back to the desk. And I'm not sure. I don't think that I should write to a desk. And I told them I wouldn't write to a desk, and I wouldn't present evidence to a desk. And this involves some former people that were directors of the central bank. And you have to ask yourself the question is, what type of regulatory body do we have there? And there is other information in relation to the EPA, and there's other information in relation to politicians who, unfortunately, know about this corruption and won't allow me to speak in front of the Finance Committee. And the question is why? Because I can save hundreds of millions for our farmers and for our taxpayers, and present evidence to them for that. And that it is sad that I have to go the whole way over to the European Commission to get a hearing, and I can't get one here from our own politicians.
Okay. Well, I don't want to close you down now, but Gemma, could I ask Councillor Dermot O'Kadja, could I ask him a brief question? Sorry, Dermot.
Hi, how are you?
Dermot, this movement, would it have a name? Any?
Yes, we've decided to call the thing the Housing Rights and Reform Alliance. So it'll be an alliance of independent candidates, but people willing to give their commitment that they'll focus on housing rights, everything from social and public housing, the prices of houses to buy, the crisis in rents, evictions, homelessness, everything to do with housing and homelessness, and how people are treated, issues of house maintenance, issues of enforcement of minimum standards in private rentals. The most recent report in Cork County Council identified 97% of private rental properties examined failed the legal minimum standard check. 97%. It is absolutely unbelievable how there's a pretense that we have a law that does anything or cares anything.
And Dermot,
it doesn't.
Yeah. And would this be an umbrella group for people for like Allo and Devon as well?
We're inviting everybody up and down the country to step forward on this kind of focused platform, housing rights and reform of our governmental systems in local government, to have accountability, to have proper debate on restraint. Would you believe in Cork County Council 12 months ago or 11 months ago now on the issue of budgets? Like, you can't make amendments to budgets. They're all agreed by the parties well in advance. So after the debacle last year, I put a notice of motion saying, could we receive a budget 3 months in advance, a draft 3 months in advance of next year's budget, so we could consider it and consider amendments to it? Would you believe Cork County Council voted no? They said, no, we don't want to see a draft in advance. A week ahead is good enough. I mean, this is what you're dealing with. Is it a saying, they're none so blind as those who will not see?
No.
They just, any issue at all is worked out in advance by these party clubs, and they're self-interested. We saw what they did with Gemma in the recent thing. They raise their ugly head on a frequent basis when it matters, when vested interests are threatened. All other times they sit back on their backside doing nothing. Nothing. There are council members that tell you in Cork City and County Council who haven't proposed a single issue of policy to either of those councils. They just sit there, clock up their expenses, their allowances for attending conferences, take their money, and they enjoy a status that they are big important council members. Yeah. But they're not. They're useless people who are self-interested by and large. Someone asked me earlier, there may be nice individuals amongst them. That's not an issue here. What we need are public representatives who will represent the people, not who will curry popularity contests and
neither left nor right.
No, it's not the issue. People are entitled. We all have ideas on economy and how it should be organised and so on. What's important is that the people be represented. We take policy decision at a time. They should be weighed up by the public, and the public should have their say. There's nowhere in Ireland today where a citizen can go someplace and propose policy to our state. There's no provision made for it anywhere. So we need to change all that. There's a mountain of time.
Thank you, Dermot.
We're tackling it head on.
This is very exciting stuff. So we're at the birth of a new party.
Yeah, but it's an association. We don't like the name party. It's sullied because of the current crop that we have, all of which are, I like to say, each and every political party has a vested interest in itself, and of course in their backers, and that's what they're all doing, looking after each other, favours given, exchanged, promises made. Some put on the ticket, they know now they must return that favour. The whole system is rotten to the core, and you can see it every day, and people are paying very dearly the price of that.
Yeah. Can I speak to Gemma there briefly? Thank you very much, Dermot, and thank you, Yvonne. And Gemma, the Housing Reform Alliance.
Well, it's great that Cork and Dermot are taking this initiative. The people of Cork are very lucky to have somebody of Dermot's calibre representing them. And I think tonight that a lot more people will join forces with him. What we're doing on a national level is we're coming into communities, we're talking about solutions, we're talking about the corruption we've all encountered in our various sectors that we've worked in. And then we're proposing solutions. I'm saying, we have to examine the media that we're buying and reading, and do we want to be supporting Dennis O'Brien newspapers or radio stations? Do we want to be supporting RTE? Yeah. And people are fully on board with this. People are awake now. They're wakening up to what's going on. They feel corruption in their everyday life. People tonight here were a very strong theme tonight was, we thought we were the ones that were crazy. This is because this gaslighting, the gaslighting that's going on, where the government is trying to make people think that they're the crazy ones, when in fact it's the government are the crazy ones. So this was a strong theme here this evening, that we are so pleased that, there's a national movement against corruption now beginning in Ireland, and people feel emboldened by the fact that citizens are feeling it up and down the country. It's not in their imaginations.
No, and like Yvonne said, she felt like, oh, I'm not alone. Actually, there are other people who are asking.
Right. And there's nothing worse, when a citizen is going through torture at the hands of the state, to feel that they are on their own. They need support. And that's what we have to do, those of us who are in a position to support them and give them a voice. And that's why what you're doing is so important. We have to provide alternative media for those who are not being heard and who are being fed, the public are being fed so much nonsense day in, day out by RTE, the Dennis O'Brien media, the Irish Times. Unfortunately, the Sunday papers now, the Business Post has really, really changed in the last few months. I see they're getting a lot more government funding, and people are losing confidence at a rate of knots in the mainstream media. So
yeah, I did notice that. I think
provide an alternative platform for them.
Yeah, well, there's a desperate need for alternative media. There really is, and different kind of shows and platforms like this. But Gemma, I don't want to keep you there, and I don't want to keep Yvonne and Allo and Dermot.
Well, thank you for having us on, and sorry to interrupt your.
Not at all, and not at all. And if you could mention to Yvonne and Allo and Dermot that we could have them on next week, a little less sort of live, a little more relaxed.
We will indeed.
Okay, perfect. So we can go through.
We will indeed.
Go through everything. Thank you very much, Gemma. And thank you very much, Yvonne and Allo and Dermot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Okay, good evening.
Good
Thanks.
Good night now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
That's Gemma O'Doherty in Cork at the Changemakers meeting. Johnny, you would have probably been there.
Yeah, I think she goes to go to Cork, John. No, yeah. I was at Kilkenny and Waterford at the start of it, and it was palatable. Like, it really is something that was getting momentum the whole time. And they're very credible. I don't know Yvonne personally now, but I just from looking at Allo and Gemma and Seamus May is another gentleman on that panel.
Yeah.
Small businesses, and he has his own stories to tell. They're all very personal stories, as I said, and in relation to dealing with the system. I was going to ask Gemma, what does she think about 19th in the world. Do we have room for improvement? Can we get up? Can we get into the top 10?
Oh,
But we're only 19th. I thought we could win at this.
I was just going to suggest, Kevin, that you might stand in the Galway, one of the.
No. Just once more, John. I'm not living in Galway, and I don't have. One thing I will never ever do is stand for public office. But there is something that Dermot said that reminded me of something that happened some decades ago. Before his more illustrious political career, Garret FitzGerald was, of course, a senator. He was a member of Shannon, and one of the other posts which Garret collected, like stamps, was a member of the governing body of UCD. And there was a very famous occasion when Garret put forward a motion at a meeting of the governing body of UCD, and the motion was that this governing body shall communicate its own decisions to itself. And it was defeated. It was defeated.
I wonder why.
They voted not to distribute minutes to itself.
Fascinating. Thank you for that, Kevin.
That's okay.
So you won't be standing anyway for the.
I'd love that.
Not a snowball's chance in hell, no.
Whatever.
But I will, as has been my wont for a number of decades, I will try, like I believe everybody participating in this will try to exert some influence, hopefully for the better in any future electoral contest.
Well, certainly, I'm sure they would have some views on Tuam. Can I just say a quick hello to Olga Cronin, who's just joined us?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hello, Olga.
Hey, Olga.
Hi, Olga.
Very welcome, Olga. I'm not sure if I was going to do the papers.
Oh, okay.
No, I'll do them. But I just want to ask Dermot. Dermot, in Mission Control, anything from the chat pit you need asking? We've lost you. We lost the sound there, Dermot. We've lost your sound.
Sorry, Joe. I muted myself. There's a bit of support for this new association. A few people saying well done, and it's a good thing to be a part of.
Great. Okay. The Housing Reform Alliance. Sorry, Vanessa, you wanted to.
I think Stephen Garland's in the chat this evening.
Oh, I sent Stephen the link to come on the show.
Well, there's a giggling Geary, and that's his logo, isn't it, for his comedy club?
I don't know. No, maybe.
He probably doesn't look his Mae West. I don't know. He always looks great.
Stephen looks so good. Looks fantastic. Yeah, but we
I know. I wouldn't even know it.
And Dermot, is there any more news on Peter Casey and polling? Any online polls that we should be aware of?
That's what I know, John. The journal was the last one I see.
Okay. Well, see if there's anything about that. I know there's a moratorium, but
yeah. But the thing about the whole Peter Casey thing, people took huge objection to Leo Varadkar and his, social welfare cheaters cheat us all, and the department actually rolled back and said that was a mistake. I remember us talking about it being in the newspapers that the department officials said that campaign was a mistake.
Yeah.
And I mean, how is that any different from Peter Casey cribbing about social welfare? I mean, he doesn't even pay tax in this country.
Well,
he don't get to throw stones.
He's throwing red meat out there, but I think what you're getting is a lot of people who will just, who need a protest vote and.
Yes, but I mean, the protest for a long time was this thing that with Leo, cheaters cheat us all, and we've just found out that the everyday person isn't the cheater at all.
Well, yeah, I always said, like, in every business there's a bad debt provision of about, I don't know.
Well, you'd have a standard percentage.
Yeah, and in some businesses that would be like 13%. In welfare, it's only, 2 or 3% welfare fraud. So it's better than most white-collar businesses.
It's not the people they're suggesting it is, and that's been proven time and time again. But it's the same analogy, and people stopped that. It was proved to be wrong. So maybe people think about that tomorrow when they're looking at the tick boxes.
Well,
don't give him a preference.
Oh, don't give him. Yeah, well, sorry, Kevin.
Don't.
I'm not going to mention that you're in Galway, but again,
Okay.
but, any idea how you might be voting tomorrow, or?
I've got a very good idea how I shall be voting tomorrow, John. But I'm not necessarily going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
I will not. I will register my vote. I will do it clearly. I will mark the box. I will not spoil my vote. I'm in a very lucky position. I think probably luckier than any of you, that I only have to walk about 250 yards to cast my vote. Oh. So I shall be out there bright and early. I've got a haircut due in the morning, so I'll get that done first. And,
looking best.
I will cast the vote, and I can tell you that I won't be voting for Peter Casey, and neither will I be giving him a preference. But can I just broaden it just a moment, John, if I may? What you're looking at, to some extent, the lineup in the presidential election reflects it, but generally politics as a whole seems to me to have gone the same way. My own mucker Fintan O'Toole, when a second year student in UCD, wrote a wonderful paper called "Students and the Freemasonry of Mediocrity." And what you're looking at today in Irish politics and Irish political life is the triumph of the Freemasonry of mediocrity. Quite frankly, the people we elect are second rate. The people we put in positions of power are second rate. I know that Mr. Varadkar has many things on his mind and weighty duties, but frankly, I see a man preoccupied with whether he needs to change his moisturizer or whether he needs to upsize his lycra shorts. I look at our Minister for Finance, it's Bertie Ahern with a leaving cert. You know, these little chaps like O'Donovan or whatever it is down in Cork, who looks like he needs a note from his mother to travel to the Dáil. I mean, these people are bloody useless. You know, it's as simple as that. And therefore, it's no surprise that you get a bunch of tossers running for president.
Well, yeah, I mean, this aging boy band currently in government is it's wearing.
No, don't mention Westlife there, John.
Yeah.
I call them the Temple Bar generation. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've thought a lot about this over the last week, and it's good to see someone making an alliance there and directing the problem that is the main one of today, which is housing, and obviously health is an ongoing thing. But housing is really going to get serious, as many people predicted. Colder this winter gets, the more seriousness we're going to have to deal with it head on. So I've kind of really just sat down and logically thought, whose fault is it? And I'm sick of blaming politicians, because they're not around long enough to actually take credit for it or blame for anything. So I'm kind of looking at civil servants, and people are going, that's completely wrong. But if you look at the housing department, I don't run it. It's not run by a private group. It's run by civil servants. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Okay. So if they decide that their job is unattainable and what they're being asked to do is corrupt, they have a duty of care for the people that pays their tax, that pays their wages, which is the public, and their public servants, civil servants, what have you.
Wow.
So would they not just walk out in solidarity and say, we're not working here because A, B, and C is broken. Until you fix A, B, and C, we can't work within that. And if they walk out, that's basically saying that the politicians they're a waste of time. And
it'll never happen, Johnny.
It could be an interesting development if it does, but
the politicians come and go.
Yeah, exactly. But the civil servants are there, and most of them are there long term, so they have pension sort, and anyone else coming into the civil service don't have all those amenities and benefits that the elder general civil servants have. It really, you know.
Okay.
It's a small country, John. It's 4.5 million people. If we think logically in relation to the population and how how best to solve the problem. They could be solved overnight. They really could. That's just my humble, modest.
Okay. No, thank you for that.
I have no idea how the civil service works, but I'm very interested to know.
Okay. Well, sorry, Olga, just want to come to you. Were you doing the papers, or was I doing the papers?
They're up there now, yeah.
Oh, they're up there now. God, thanks. Sorry. I'm not sure if Dermot, can you share the papers?
If you want to throw command over to us, Sir John.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. You've got the controls now.
Yeah, cheers.
I take it John Reynolds probably won't make the.
Oh yeah, it was in.
Well, look who does make it.
It was said tonight that it was announced tonight that John Reynolds, the concert promoter and the man behind the Electric Picnic and Pod nightclub, founded Boyzone with Louis Walsh, a man of some taste. John Reynolds,
gentleman,
has died aged 52.
Oh.
Yeah. He was a nephew of Albert Reynolds, and
gorgeous manners.
Yeah, very, very kind of shy, kind of reserved guy. I met him in New York when he had secured Bjork for the Electric Picnic, and I'd never met a happier man. He said it was one of the happiest days of his life. So he really, really loved the music, you know, as opposed to, I don't know.
Leonard Cohen was a big fan of him as well. He brought Leonard
Cohen. Also Ennio Morricone to the Royal Hospital Command, and put on those sort of very tasteful Leonard Cohen concerts before Leonard Cohen died. So it's extremely sad. Rest in peace. We seem to have lost Kevin there, but yeah, there's
the original JR.
Is a great son. You know, this is that's a statement on behalf of the family. Sorry, Olga, if you want to go through the papers.
Yeah, sure. So the
I may have to go to the bathroom if you excuse me, just one moment.
So the top paper there is the Time. So the picture there is of Sir Philip Green. So I'm not sure if you saw, but it kind of broke today that he's the businessman who was alleged to have staff, from speaking out about bullying and sexual harassment. And he was basically named in the House of Lords. So there he is. Just to say that, the story there, in the Times, the collapse of the privacy injunction, which cost Sir Philip around £500,000 to secure, will renew controversy about how the law is being used by the wealthy to mask allegations of wrongdoing. It will also pile pressure on Parliament to act against non-disclosure agreements. So there's a call for him to be stripped of his knighthood. There's more of that, I think, in The Sun as well. It's in a lot of the front pages of the...
I think he was controversial anyway, because I think he transferred a lot of his wealth to his wife a few years ago when Topshop and there was, possible judgments being made and investigations. Okay. So effectively, all his wealth was owned by his wife.
Okay.
And was the wife in Malta, I think?
Was she? Sorry.
I don't know whether. I don't think they live in the UK anyway. I think they're kind of Monaco-based, south of France.
So yeah, Monaco, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one button too much. It's always a sign.
The top story there on the Times by Aaron Rogan: alt-right accused of skewing opinion polls to favour Casey. So Peter Casey, candidate in the presidential election, has received the backing of alt-right supporters online. He was widely criticised for his comments about travellers, saying that they were not an ethnic group, but people camping on someone else's land. So Aaron Rogan is reporting that a number of users of 4chan, a notorious online forum where people can post anonymously, have praised Mr. Casey for the comments, and an earlier remark that Jewish people basically live in the White House. So 4chan, if you remember, that's a platform that was used at the time of remember that rock was thrown into the Panties Bar?
Was that
that was that. It was that forum that was used where someone was saying, "I'm going to go and do it now," and people were egging this person on, and it was all kind of real time talking about it. So that's that forum that Aaron Rogan is reporting on. So So anyway, basically they're saying he's reporting that supporters of Mr. Casey appear to have skewed the results of online polls to place him as the leader or second favourite, despite the most recent opinion poll placing him on 2%. They've also done mock-ups of Mr. Casey as Pepe the Frog, an alt-right symbol, standing in front of a picture of burning caravans. So I guess they're kind of saying that all those online polls
just
that were
take
out
50
this
of
evening,
those. Okay.
yeah,
50 of those guys, half a dozen devices. They could put out
exactly,
10,000 votes, no problem. They'd have it done in an afternoon.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens tomorrow or Saturday. So anyway, it's a great story.
I think Peter Casey is going to be mortified on Saturday morning, thinking he has 51% of the vote.
Then on the bottom there, so the main story: inspections at 11 schools not linked to architects. We compiled with the regulations, says Upperman Jennifer Bray. The architectural firm that designed the Trouble Priory Hall development has said it's not responsible for any safety issues at 11 schools due for urgent inspections. So obviously this is in light of everything that's going on with the schools that were built by schools and another building that were built by Western Building Systems. So
there was a lot of old folks' homes built around that time as well, wasn't there?
Nursing homes,
Yeah, there are actually. Can we just get into the Examiner, or have you been there already, Olga?
Yeah, no, we haven't. So the main story there: parents may sue state on school closures. So this is the school. This is follow on from again the same story, but the schools that were closed, the schools that were built by Western Building Systems, and there's some, structural issues with them. So 40 of those schools are being tested for safety checks. But the story here by Fearco and Own English, solicitor warns of considerable damages as scandal deepens. Thousands of parents affected of the deepening school safety scandal could sue the state for considerable damages as a direct result of the decade-long failure to uncover the potential life-threatening crisis. So,
yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Mick Clifford has been writing an awful lot about buildings, unsafe buildings, the last couple of years.
He has, hasn't he? Because he had that, longboat.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Making money out of the housing shortage. Olga, can I just go back up to the alt-right one? I was...
Oh yeah, we were just talking about that there.
What is that suggesting? That the alt-right are skewing the online polls, like the ones that we mentioned, the Limerick?
Yeah, he hasn't. I don't think he's actually mentioned the Limerick polls, but I'm guessing that's what he's referring to. He's just talking about online polls. This today being so for him that these are being skewed by this alt-right group of people, because he's basically saying that a number of users of 4chan, that online forum, have praised him for the comments he's made. Blah blah blah. There's also evidence of coordinated efforts to boost Mr. Casey's status online. A number of Twitter accounts have been activated in the past week to push his message.
Okay.
So that's what they're saying. So that's interesting.
Okay. Well,
we'll have to see.
I don't know. I mean, are those polls skewed? I mean,
well, if they're online polls, it's pretty easy to skew them, isn't it? If you just get a load
John, that's 100 lads, half a dozen devices.
Yeah, I feel
no
something
problem.
else, though. I feel that there is a protest vote on its way, and it's going to be heading for him. I mean, I just feel that. I sense it. I mean,
we're no different from America and that kind of thinking, John. You're right.
Yeah, well,
there's going to be protest vote.
You have to create an enemy. When the enemy isn't rich people like Casey, multi-millionaires, they have to blame the ones that have the least. That's just since time began. I think we should be able to learn from Trump. But we'll see. It's a very interesting thing that we wake up on Saturday morning to see how many votes we get.
John, can we say that you've got a feeling in your John Waters?
Well,
I've seen John Waters in Kilkenny there the other week.
Did you say hello?
I mean, John,
I was in the car. I was raining. I didn't.
We were the only ones to call Brexit and Trump. I mean,
and the referendum.
And the referendum. And whatever you have in yourself. But
as they said on Sky News, to a T.
We did. But no, I don't feel he will win. But I do think that there will be a huge protest vote for him.
There will be a protest vote. But, John, I think Peter Casey's motivation in all this has just been to separate himself from Duffy and from Gallagher.
Yeah.
I do, because I mean, even in terms of wealth, he's in a different league to those two books, big time.
Okay. Sorry, Kevin, you were going to say something there, were you?
No, I'm agreeing with Vanessa. Certainly, compared to Casey, neither Gallagher and Mr. Duffy don't have a pot to piss in. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Okay. They are. I mean, Gavin Duffy's, as they say, got more front than Brighton. You know, I mean, the guy is full of it.
He's a male Terry Prone.
He used to work with Prone in the community in Cork Communications.
Yeah.
Oh God, they did. So he didn't lick it off the ground then?
No.
Just to say
but I do think Duffy and Gallagher were egged on by connections in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael to just chip away at the Sinn Féin vote. I don't think they wanted Sinn Féin having a good old lash at it. I think then Casey just piggybacked in saying, feck it. If they're going, I might as well go in and rattle them, piss off the boys.
Yeah.
Because I'd say when he chipped in, the two boys shat themselves. Excuse me, John.
Yeah, the language, we must be, we're not past the watershed yet. Who will get the transfers? Who will get Casey's transfers?
The girls. The girls are going to get all the transfers. And maybe Miggledy. Yeah.
Okay. But so the Dragons are out of the picture, the Duffy and...
I think he's going to do better than the other two. I'll tell you where I think it's going to go tomorrow on Saturday at the count. It'll be Michael D, Leah, and Freeman.
Right.
To the last count.
I'm going to suggest Higgins, Casey, and Leah in that order. Kevin?
I don't know. I can see arguments for both, and I'm not sitting on the fence, I assure you. What I am going to do is not popcorn, but I'm going to make sure I've got a few croissants in on Saturday morning and have the kettle on. And I'm going to. It's the only blood sport I approve of.
Tomorrow is your haircut day. No, don't.
Tomorrow
he's getting all dolled up for the girls at the pony booth.
No, a haircut tomorrow and election results. Incidentally, I think probably you're going to get either a vindication or a correction of all these polls when the polls close tomorrow, because RTE are conducting a fairly serious
exit
close of poll, exit poll, and I think it's reasonable to give some credibility to what emerges from that. I think you'll get a good indicator probably around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So because sorry, John.
Just to recap, then hang on. From the chat pit, I agree with Vanessa. The man is trying to dog whistle, but his remarks are right. And Margaret, right, okay. I won't finish reading that one out. Thanks.
What did I say?
No. It strayed into that kind of weird territory.
Oh, I better check it out.
There's a story there in the Examiner, just to let you know, given that the new homeless figures came out, there's been another increase. And so it's just a story there by Noel Baker on the side that Focus Ireland has advised homeless families on around 180 occasions so far this year to consider spending the night at a Garda station.
And how many occasions? 180?
180 occasions, and these are families.
Can I ask Olga if she's had the time and energy to revisit Peter Charlton's report and what her second and maybe third evaluation of it is?
Well, funny you should mention that. We were just going to go on to that. Actually.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
Not at all, Kevin. No, but thank you for helping with the segue.
Sorry, can I just go back to this is going to take 10 seconds, John, I promise. What Kevin was saying about we'll know by 10 tomorrow evening. The RTE's exit poll the last time at the referendum in May, the 36th Amendment. Is it the 35th or the 36th? That was fantastic. They collated a huge amount of information. It wasn't just what way they voted. They collected a lot of information, and hopefully we get that same detail again. that we got the last time. Well, you voted for Peter Casey, why?
All right.
And they trapped the age and the gender as well. Or why didn't you vote for Michael D? Oh, well, he said he was only going to run once the last time. So, or they might say it was all the expenses they heard about and stuff like that. So that information can be very interesting when you're trying to judge the public. Because remember that there's 2 sets of elections next year.
Well, certainly in terms of, I'd love to know the motivation behind the Peter Casey vote. I'm sure it wouldn't be all anti-traveller. I think it's just to piss.
I think there's max 20,000 in that vote.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Olga, as Kevin. Oh, sorry, Kevin. Did you want to say something?
No. I want to hear from Olga.
Olga. Disclosures Tribunal. It's been now 2 weeks, isn't it?
It's 2 weeks, yeah, and it's a really readable report. He focuses, there was 100 days of hearings, and he had several terms of references, but he basically split it into 3.
Yeah, could I just actually go straight to
go first, John? Okay.
Cut to the chase because it's a little bit late, and we've 5 or 10 minutes now. The reaction to the report. I thought the Eamon Dunphy podcast, The Stand with Mick Clifford, was excellent yesterday.
Yeah.
And they discussed the Marion Finucane show on Sunday, where it was suggested repeatedly by the host and others that Frances Fitzgerald was completely vindicated in the report.
And Noreen O'Sullivan.
And as was Noreen O'Sullivan. And I think Mick Clifford did a brilliant job sort of breaking down the fact that this was no kind of vindication of any sort of type, and her resignation was political anyway.
Yeah.
And anyway,
and also Charlton did find that some of Noreen O'Sullivan's evidence was improbable, disappointing, and
not credible,
enhanced.
So, but essentially, right, he found that Maurice McCabe was the subject of a smear campaign in respect of 2 people. Sorry, John, I've just gone back to now explaining. Did I just
no, it's
fine,
fine,
it's fine. But he found that he was, in terms of one of 3 sections. So sorry, if you think of the report in 3 sections, right, the Tusla fake rape allegation, the O'Higgins Commission investigation, and then third, attacks on his character. And in terms of attacks on his character, Charlton found that yes, there was a smear campaign against him ran by Callanan and Dave Taylor. Yeah. Now, he didn't find that anyone else was involved, but in terms of the first module, if you like, the first report within the report about the Tusla rape referral, the manner in which that first of all was created and then circulated and went to the guards, went all the way up to the Garda Commissioner's office, sat in the Garda Commissioner's office for 3 years. The Garda Commissioner didn't remember it. The manner in which that went up, it was sent up by Gardaí, senior Gardaí, very senior Gardaí, in the knowledge that it was incorrect. The Assistant Commissioner, Kieran Kenny, when he found out and he was told officially that it was incorrect, he retired, never telling Garda HQ that was a false rape allegation. So that allegation sat there. So, but the thing is that in regards to how Tusla, their incompetence and the Gardaí's incompetence, he just didn't find that they worked together on that, and he didn't find that there was collusion.
Yeah, he said there was
no collusion.
But he based.
But he could not determine why that fake rape allegation went from Tusla to Gardaí at a pivotal time when Maurice was well known in the media and had just gone through his campaign of calumny, which he found in January 2014. So it was May 2014 when this rape allegation went to the guards. But all Charlton found was that there was a kind of a month or 2, 3 month long campaign of calumny. Callanan resigned. Noreen O'Sullivan sacked Taylor. Noreen O'Sullivan had this fake rape allegation. Noreen O'Sullivan can't remember it, but it sits there for 3 years.
Yeah,
2017.
So, but he, Charlton just couldn't find tangible evidence that this was part of a campaign.
It did kind of fall out on the basis that, like he says, this would have to be the most incredible coincidence, and it was,
Yeah.
But that's only based on, well, I kind of feel it was, I kind of, rather than any.
Well, I suppose, like
he about the randomly plucked, the randomly plucked. There's a couple of things with this. Firstly, the person who randomly plucked the file he said that it wasn't a coincidence.
No.
Therefore, this person lied to him in the witness stand. However, he doesn't. He suggests, based on no evidence, but suggests that this must have been a bigger force behind her doing that. She was being directed. Based on what, I don't know, but the fact that he took pity on her, maybe, or because certainly Taylor never got that benefit of the doubt, you know.
No, but he just had, to use the term, he didn't have the sufficient evidence to say X told Y told Z. You know, it was just this devastating sequence of events that are just. Martin McCabe is the most unluckiest man in the world, but the only evidence that he could actually say where Martin McCabe was smeared purposefully was when Callahan spoke to Philip Boucher-Hayes, Seamus McCarthy, John McGuinness.
Yes, I know, but he was reaching.
Sorry.
He was reaching conclusions regarding, say, the Tulsa worker.
Yeah. Things
that were only just sort of his instinct, as opposed to kind of anything with direct evidence. For instance, he doesn't know whether this person did this deliberately. He simply says that he doesn't believe it was randomly plucked, but yet he doesn't believe that this person was acting on her own volition. Therefore, I mean, someone put it into her mind to take this out, but he couldn't. But that's what he was giving out about. So he basically he concluded that he was just really disappointed and dispirited with Tusla for not explaining to him what happened. But he just didn't go so far as to say that the guards had been involved in that. Like, he absolutely didn't find any bridge, if you like. He didn't find any bridge, but yet he was reaching a conclusion based on just. He couldn't imagine this person doing it. That's really
couldn't imagine. Yeah.
You know. But, sorry, Vanessa.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just this sec. Do you know? I haven't read the report, Olga. So, but do you know? He couldn't imagine it. He didn't think it was a coincidence. But here's what I think: the certain gentlemen in the Gardaí knew this was after happening, and they didn't correct it. They knew it was an error, or they knew
that was
they should chip in immediately and say, no, that actually got sorted. Here's the DPP's letter. Here's the thing. There's that. You know, they deliberately. Well, I shouldn't. Sorry, I'll take that back. They sat back and watched it happen. That's not leadership.
Okay, I'll go. Like, again, we must sit down with Mick and Claire and get John McGuinness on and do.
Maybe during the day, because it's just too difficult coming at night. But one thing you mentioned the Marion Finucane show, and so Marion Finucane, as you said, if people want to listen back to The Stand with Eamon Dunphy and Mick Clifford, he does go through it excellently about how that radio show spoke about Noreen O'Sullivan and Francis Fitzgerald, and how Mick Clifford just breaks down exactly what happened with Francis Fitzgerald. But what's really interesting is that Marion Finucane mentioned in the radio show an article that Conor Brady did in the Sunday Times last weekend, and she said about how it was a great article because it talked about how Maurice McCabe was treated badly. But in that article, Conor Brady mentions how he had been told by a senior official there's another side to Maurice McCabe. And he mentioned how a businessman friend of his had been told by somebody else.
On a golf course.
Yeah. And so we contacted the tribunal, and the tribunal told us that Conor Brady never told this to the tribunal. Now, he could have many reasons why he didn't, but...
Yeah, well, and Charlton had pleaded.
Conor Brady,
pleaded over and over and over, yeah.
Conor Brady, who was, of course, the former editor of Garda Review before he went to the Eddie Heights of the Irish Times.
Yeah, and is in GSOC, isn't he?
GSOC, he was chair of GSOC.
He was in GSOC, former ombudsman, former Irish Times editor. But and he has spoken, and he has spoken very highly of Maurice McCabe. It just seems so bizarre that you have, and the thing is that Charlton had made umpteen pleas for people to come forward, anyone who had information, and he also made the point. He said this would happen. He said that people will write, journalists will write about stuff that they were told about Maurice McCabe, but they're not telling me. And it's only the ink is barely dry in the report, and that's already happened.
But saying that, a lot of the testimony, Anne Harris's, and was not.
Colin Kenny.
Colin Kenny's was not examined by Charlton anyway, so maybe it would have been superfluous, but it would have been interesting to hear. Can I just? we've got about 4 minutes left. I just want to just mention John Reynolds again, if that's okay. Johnny is a promoter as well, so I think of the Irish concert promoters, John Reynolds had a very good reputation.
I met him once when I was in Today FM on my internship and radio broadcasting, and yeah, gentleman, as Vanessa said, a real very respectful of where he was, and I was bringing him tea. Just call by the pod anytime, you know.
Yeah.
I did, but I never caught up with him. But he booked Howard at the Metropolis, which I think is this weekend or next weekend. That's his brainchild as well.
Right.
Bringing on arts to, and Howard's last gig in Ireland was with
that's Howard Marks, isn't it?
To bring him, and yeah, he was Midlands man as well.
Just to recap again, John Reynolds was just 52, and in 2004 he created the Electric Picnic. He started the Pod nightclub, which basically brought dance music to Ireland. You know, decent dance, decent DJs.
In a nightclub setting, what was the DJ? He had 3 tables, decks going at the same time. What was his name? Jonathan?
Johnny Moy.
No. He brought a guy in from the Ministry of Sound, Jonathan. He'd long blonde hair. He was another gentleman, actually. He was in my house one night.
Okay. Anyway, so
yeah, Jonathan.
I just want to mention because he brought a lot. I mean, he created kind of a lot of events for different generations. Certainly, the Pod was like pivotal in the dance scene.
And then it was a Crawdaddy was upstairs. Then he expanded it upstairs.
Yeah, and I think the Red Box as well. But then he started. He gave Louis Walsh 10 grand to start Boyzone. So
I'll never forgive him for that.
Well,
no, they saw an opening at the time. They went for it.
Well, they certainly did.
The auditions were in the Pod, yeah.
And I think he owned 50% of Boyzone up to there, before they really made it. But it started Louis Walsh. He was responsible for Louis Walsh. But and then the Electric Picnic, which I think is a kind of rite of passage, I guess, now, and Irish young people and middle-aged glamping people, and but also the Leonard Cohen stuff at the Royal Hospital Kilmainham. I think they were exceptional concerts.
But Leonard Cohen gave him a great tribute as well.
Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, he spoke of him, in an interview specifically, and you never really hear promoters being called out because they just usually get paid and that's it. They're happy with that. But to be getting mentioned by Leonard Cohen, you probably know you're doing something well, and I suppose that's probably a great legacy to have.
Yeah, Kevin, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm desperately sorry to hear of John's demise. I think it's fair to say he was one cool dude. You can certainly say that. And not only that, but it wasn't always plain sailing for him, because John encountered a fair bit of begrudgery and a fair bit of smearing and stuff like that. I seem to remember a sort of little shit rag of a publication by Elio Malocco, which ended up in the High Court, which was found to be extremely defamatory of John and indeed the way in which he managed the Pod. But he reminds me a little bit of the young Harvey Goldsmith. When Harvey started promoting concerts in the UK over 40 odd years ago, the guy was into the music, he was. Yeah. He really was.
Or like Bill Graham in America. Yeah, I mean, John.
He was actually out there in the car park when I was at Electric Picnic there a few years ago. Out in the car park with his Wellingtons directing traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be him. Yeah.
A workaholic, I think, would be an apt description. I mean, constantly.
He was a perfectionist.
Yeah. As I say, I met him at the time he got Bjork, and really, you couldn't imagine other promoters even caring. They're happy to get, I don't know, Metallica for Slane or whatever. But to bring Bjork to the Electric Picnic, to bring Bjork, I think it was 2005, 2006. It was like he negotiated himself. It was just a fantastic achievement for him, and And that, I think that just says a lot. You know, there was no mention of money, by the way. I mean, although I'm sure she was very well paid. But look, listen, it's midnight now. Unless Dermot, anything else? Anything closing from the chat pit?
No, not much. Just talking amongst themselves.
They're talking amongst themselves, are they? Okay, all right.
Dermot, you made a very good point here in our own. We actually have viewers, we have a little message board here where we talk to each other. But Dermot, you made a very good point there about Conor Brady. Do you want to repeat it for the viewers yourself?
I'm not sure this is 100% accurate, so you might correct me, but government were saying that broadsheets should be funded for the role they play in society, or whatever way you want to word that. Like this kind of Brady not going to the Disclosure Tribunal with his evidence is kind of running contrary to that.
Yeah. He's
best point of the night.
I mean, we don't know. There could be several reasons for why he didn't. We just know that he didn't, and I suppose the problem is that Charlton had spoken repeatedly in his report about how difficult it was to get to the bottom of anything, and he made repeated appeals for people to come forward. So that's all we're saying, you know.
Well, it didn't. I'm sure there's a pretty good reason. Conor Brady's book on the guards, I really highly recommend it. He seems to be pro-guard, but that book is like, when you finish it, you just want to storm the Phoenix Park.
Right.
Scandal strewn is not.
John, can I just throw a grenade in for a minute? And I'm sorry to do this so late, but on foot of Peter Charlton's report, and the rather, I thought, slightly injudicious remarks about how.
This is Francis, isn't it?
Francis had fallen selflessly on her sword.
Yeah.
I knew it was Francis.
If Leo had appointed her to cabinet the same day, I think there would have been a very uncomfortable conflation of events with respect to the separation of powers, and I think Peter Charlton would probably have been mortified. Yeah. Because he certainly stepped over the line with that. That was no part of his remit.
No, absolutely not. I totally agree with you, and it was sort of inexplicable because it was a political, it was a political resignation, and it was they just piled on Alan Kelly. It was one of those momentum, and people like Nick Wallace and Claire Daly never called for her resignation.
No.
Yeah, and also, sorry, John, and I know we have to go, but also the reason Frances Fitzgerald was it was kind of, this thing was put out there that she had done something that was based on what kind of was involved in something that Noreen O'Sullivan did, and then it turned out that Noreen O'Sullivan never did this. But this thing that Noreen O'Sullivan that Charlton had to look into doing never happened, and nobody ever said it happened. So there was a lot of weirdness going on there. And when Frances Fitzgerald gave evidence, Charlton said to her, "Where did this term of reference come from?" Because she was the person who set up the tribunal. Well, she said, I don't know, media reports.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Look, we're going to have to do
it. Absolutely.
Can we get Morris on?
Maybe on Monday. No, he'd have to resign for it. He can't do interviews unless it's Morty and Katie Hannon.
John.
Well, I apologise to him today, Harris.
You what? Yes, Drew Harris went down to Cavan to meet Morris yesterday evening. Right?
That's right, yeah. And my understanding is that he was very happy with it, and Drew Harris apologised on behalf of the guards. He sat with Morris and Lorraine, his wife, for an hour and a half, and they talked about the tribunal. They talked about loads of other things, so he apologised on behalf of the guards, and he thanked him. He thanked him for what he did, for blowing the whistle on the matters that were kind of never looked at. Then said there was nothing wrong with them, and then finally looked at in the O'Higgins Commission. And incredible. So he thanked him for that. But yeah, they were very pleased with it.
What a journey from Cavan Monaghan District Garda Station to that meeting.
Yeah.
Some journey. I mean, I'm delighted. He's extremely pleased, and again, a bit like Catherine Corliss with Kevin, there are aspects of the report that maybe he'll come back to later and sort of feel, particularly the Tulsa stuff, which was the most damaging, terms of his character.
But is it changing or is it damage limitation? That's the thing. For both.
They spent $1 million on the legal defense for the Tusla people, and I think
million.
I'm not mistaken, but that also includes wardrobe because they were all seem color coordinated going into this. I mean, it really is astonishing.
But will anyone in Tusla? Is it too late now for anyone in Tusla or in Garda Síochána to lose their job?
No, they'll never lose their jobs.
Well, the only people who are still, let's say, it's probably the Tusla people who messed up are probably still in jobs. But in the guards, all of the Gardaí who sent up the rape allegation and didn't correct it, they're no longer guards. Noina Sullivan is no longer a guard. Taylor's gone. Callanan's gone. There was one guard who was criticised, Superintendent John O'Reilly, and he was the person who was the conduit between Paul Williams and Miss D, and he was criticised, but
no penalty. No one
retired.
Okay, well, listen, we better leave it there unless there's anything really extremely pressing. Dermot Bowen, just want to thank you very much in Mission Control. Dermot, thank you very much. Good evening. In Kilkenny, Johnny Keenan with the Broadsheet Pumpkin, the official Broadsheet Pumpkin.
Brilliant. Johnny, did you do that yourself?
I did not. I can barely hold my head straight.
Johnny,
with
the dog.
The great artist Maggie Larkin.
That's your wife, isn't it?
Yeah, don't tell the missus. 20 years going this weekend.
Johnny.
Happy anniversary. Johnny, thank you so much. Kevin Higgins, not in Galway. Thank you for just your brilliant presence and your company and your great fun.
Pleasure, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And, hopefully chat over the weekend.
Indeed.
Thanks a lot, and we'll set up the Disclosures Tribunal special edition. Maybe even get Clifford on or whatever. Vanessa, Saturday accountant. Who's
Hi, good night, everyone.
Leah and Rita tomorrow. Okay.
I'll go with the Manor. On the Manor.
Vote yes to get rid of the blasphemy law.
Oh God, yeah, vote yes for the blasphemy
law. Absolutely.
Right. I think that's a given. Okay, on that bombshell, thank you very much for joining us, all readers, commenters, and even the trolls. And we'll hopefully see you on the site tomorrow or here next week. Thank you very much.